Hello, I'm Mary Jo Land, a registered psychotherapist coming to you from Priceville, Ontario, Canada. Welcome to this video series, When We Are Very Young, created to assist parents and professionals who work with parents. Many of the videos pertain to parenting children who have joined a family through adoption, foster care, or customary care. Some of the videos are about typical child development, while others are more specific to children who have experienced loss, trauma, and neglect during their early development. Attachment, trauma, and parenting are the main themes in this series. Today's episode is about reconciliation and relationship repair. So we're talking today about reconciliation, intention assignment, forgiveness, and conflict resolution. As parents, we need to help our children when they engage in hurtful behavior. Punishment, consequences, timeouts, and lectures often have little effect, especially with children who have an attachment challenge. Most importantly, these measures can create distance and resentment in relationships without making any great improvement in behavior. Here are some tools offered by experts in peace education and peace building. The tools work well for spouses, parents, and children, or warring nations. So, let's start with an example of a child hurting her sister. Let's imagine that they are 11 and 9 years old. The 11-year-old, Jane, has had a rough day at school and comes home snapping and snarling at her little sister and shoves her 9-year-old sister Sarah out of the way while they are at the fridge. In this example, one person has hurt another person. Jane hurt Sarah. The hurt is in one direction. That means that we use reconciliation as a tool to repair the hurt, not conflict resolution. Reconciliation is about healing a relationship after a wrong has been done or a hurt has been done. It is a process that can be used between two people or among groups or between, as I said, between nations. The key is that the harm or the hurt was in one direction. There are 6 steps of reconciliation. The first step is that the person who hurt needs to acknowledge the hurt done to the other person. Jane needs to acknowledge that Sarah was hurt. This is hard for Jane to do, and until Jane is skilled with this, she will need the assistance from her parent. Sarah, the hurt person, might need to be encouraged to state how she feels and the effect the hurt has had on her. It might go like this. Jane is fuming. Sarah is crying, having hit her back on the counter. The parent arrives saying, "Jane, Sarah, what's happened here?" Jane says, "She was in my way." Sarah says, "She pushed me and I hit my back." Both children need calming and soothing before going on. This is a crucial point because if you don't re-regulate them, they will get into just more and more argument. Sarah is hurt, so she gets comforted first. Then the same soothing is given to Jane, who hopefully accepts it. Don't proceed until you have 2 calm children. Then the parent might say, "Jane, can you tell Sarah what you did?" And Jane might say, "You were hogging the fridge, so I pushed you out of the way." And the parent says, "Oh, so you pushed Sarah." Notice how this skilled parent just ignored the provocative comment. "What happened to Sarah? Can you tell her?" Jane says, "Ma, she hit her back. I can't help it if she's so clumsy." Okay, so Jane said that she pushed Sarah and that Sarah hit her back. Good enough. Now step 2 is the person who hurt, and that would be Jane, needs to accept responsibility without excuses and without blame. Jane needs to take responsibility with hopefully heartfelt understanding of the hurt done, but again, she will require support and coaching to do this from her parent. It might go something like this. Thank you, Jane. I know that was hard for you. You do seem to be angry about something, and we can talk about that later. Right now, I hear that you think that Sarah was being clumsy and was to blame for getting hurt. Did Sarah get hurt because she is clumsy or because you pushed her? Jane says something like, well, I'm mad. I did push her and yeah, she hit her back. The parent says, thank you, Jane, for taking responsibility for hurting Sarah. No, we're not after perfect here from the children. We're just going towards honing these skills. So the next step is that, and this is step 3, that Jane needs to apologize, and that Sarah needs to accept that apology and give forgiveness. The apology must be heartfelt and come from a place of understanding and acceptance of the effect that her actions, Jane's actions, had on the other person, which would be Sarah. This might include a promise of not doing this again, and so the parent might say, Jane, even though you're mad about something, I don't think Sarah had anything to do with it. She's hurt, so what do you need to do? And Jane, she said, because she was comforted, she is able to say, sorry, Sarah. Sorry I hurt you. I shouldn't have pushed you. And the parent says, okay, Sarah, Jane has apologized for hurting you. And Sarah says, you really hurt my back. You shouldn't have done that. Okay, so now the step 4, which is Sarah has to be willing to end the problem by accepting the apology and giving forgiveness. Sarah might need some help to accept that apology, and she might need some help to take the opportunity to have her feelings heard and accept that the other person has taken responsibility for her actions. So the parent might say, Sarah, Jane has taken responsibility and apologized. She knows she hurt you and has said that she was wrong. What can you do now to help with the solution to this problem? And Sarah might say, well, I'd like to push her back, but all right, I think I should accept her apology. Thank you, Jane, for apologizing. I forgive you. So maybe it wasn't perfect, but we're getting close, and we're getting kind of used to what the script might be for these kids. So now step 5. The person who hurt must now compensate the person she hurt by making the hurt better in some way. If property was damaged, it might be repaired, or the person who damaged it might need to repair it herself, or pay for it to be repaired. If the person's feelings were hurt, a small gift or act of kindness might begin to repair the relationship. In this example, Jane might offer a gift of food. The parent might say, Jane, what kindness might you now offer to Sarah since you hurt her? Jane is saying, well, I think we're both hungry, so I could make a snack for both of us. Is that okay with you, Sarah? And Sarah says, yeah, how about some cheese and apples? So you can see that both children are regulated, and now we're moving away from the conflict from the hurt that's been done. And so finally, one of the most important steps is that both individuals need to acknowledge that the hurt is over and that it needs to be put in the past. Talk about the incident should focus on giving and getting forgiveness, not about the hurt that was done. The parent might say, wow, girls, you're getting to be really good at giving and getting forgiveness. I love the way that you've repaired here. And Jane might say, okay, Sarah, let's go outside and shoot some hoops. Now, that wasn't easy. It takes a lot of learning on the parent's side and a lot of coaching at first. In the end, your children will have the skills to do this on their own as they go out into the world. It might help to have a family meeting and learn the steps of reconciliation and repair. You might post these steps on the fridge door or use the steps to guide you as you coach your children through it. Despite our best efforts, forgiveness is often difficult to ask for and difficult to give. One thing that gets in the way is misunderstanding the intention of the person who hurt. It's very important to know the intention of the person who hurt, and intention varies from no intention at all to a premeditated, planned, and malicious intention. So let's go through the different levels, because often children misread the intention of the person who hurt them, especially children who have an attachment problem or have developmental trauma. Often those children overassess the hostility of the intention of the person who hurt them. I'm always being bullied, nobody likes me, everyone picks on me. These are overassessment of negative intention. So, the levels of our intention are this. Completely accidental is the first one, such as bumping into someone because you didn't see them. And that happens all the time, so it's easy to recognize this, and usually it's really easy to say, oh, sorry, and accept that apology immediately. In this case today, it would be that Jane had just accidentally bumped into Sarah. The next level up is a mistaken attention. For example, being playful but causing harm, such as Jane playfully hip-checking Sarah and Sarah hitting the counter. Jane didn't have an intention of hurting Sarah at all. She had an intention of playing with her, so there was a mistaken intention there. The next level, number 3, is a well-intended but unforeseen hurtful consequence. In this example, it might be that if Jane came in and gave her sister a hug, but Sarah had a pre-existing sore back, so that when Jane hugged Sarah, Sarah was hurt, but the intention was actually to do something kind and nice. The next level of intention is about carelessness or having an avoidable situation happen if one hadn't been careless. And in this example, it would be that if Jane was angry, but she didn't, and that would be the case in this example, because Jane was angry, and although she didn't hurt her sister on purpose, she did intend to push her, and that was a careless action. And the hurt was quite avoidable. The next level of intention is negligence. And in this case, it might be something like starting a fire next to your neighbor's property line and setting your neighbor's shed on fire. So planning or forethought and consideration of others would have prevented this, and so that's why we call this negligence. If Jane had thought, oh, I'll just push her so I can get at my snack first, that she would have intended to push her but not necessarily cause her harm. The next level is malicious intention, in which harm is meant to be done, but this occurs as a result of impulse, such as when a person is emotionally or behaviorally dysregulated. So these are bad actions that occur during an emotional outburst. If Jane had been in a rage and yelling and highly aroused and dysregulated and pushed Sarah, causing harm, and yet would never have done this if she were calm, this would be an example of a malicious intention during a dysregulated state. Well, that happens a lot with attachment disordered children or children who've experienced early trauma and neglect. So we might call this a crime of passion, or so to speak. And lastly, malicious intention with premeditation. That is, that it has been planned. Now, this is truly immoral and often illegal. And this would be the case if Jane was planning to hurt Sarah, thinking about it in advance, and doing so in a calmish kind of way, or state of mind. So that's a lot of levels of intention, from completely accidental to premeditated malicious intent. And if we help our children to learn those various levels of intention and to accurately read and convey them, then it will help them with forgiveness, giving and receiving forgiveness. So it's important to know the intention of the person who hurt. It's easy to forgive completely accidental mishaps, and as we go down the list, it becomes harder and harder to forgive. One problem is that the person who is hurt often thinks that there was greater intention of harm than the person who hurt intended. So if Sarah thought Jane had planned to hurt her, looked her in the eyes and pushed her hard, Sarah would have a much harder time forgiving Jane, and rightfully so. And then, if Jane was accused of this, she would less likely take responsibility for hurting Sarah because she had no plan to hurt her in that way, or with that in mind. The person who hurt is less likely to take responsibility if her actions are said to be of greater intention than they truly were. In repair and reconciliation discussions, it's important to work out the intention of the person who hurt. In younger children, most levels of intention are seen frequently. Parents need to have a clear understanding from the child who hurt what their intention was, and be sure that the child who was hurt does not think or feel that there was more harmful intention than there was. Notice too that I'm not using the labels victim or aggressor. These labels are not what we want our children to take on for themselves or others. Parents need to be very concerned if young children act with premeditated malicious intent. Special care needs to be directed towards such children so that they have little opportunity to harm others and lots of opportunity to have guidance and support. Punishment and consequences will likely have little impact except to make the child more secretive in his or her actions. Helping these children to learn to take responsibility and to go through the reconciliation process will assist them in being less hurtful. It is important to remember that once the reconciliation process has been completed and the relationship has been repaired, no further consequences are required. This helps children and their parents get out from under the long groundings, timeouts, and extended consequences. The message is, you have hurt someone, and when you have repaired the relationship, the hurt is healed. Next time, we'll talk about conflict resolution, which is the tool we use when two people hurt each other, and the hurt is in two directions. Thank you for joining me. It's not much of a tale, but I'm sort of attached to it. My name is Mary Jo Land, and until next time.